Hello, my friends. My name is Harold, and welcome to the Sanctum. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the runes. Essentially, this video is made to accompany my recent YouTube Shorts video on folk manifestation, or what I like to call folk manifestation. Folk manifestation is essentially the use of different traditions and different esoteric principles to put together a symbolic working to bring about a certain change in reality. Now, this particular YouTube short on folk manifestation used the idea of the Norse runes. So, this video will talk a little bit more about what a rune is and why they're powerful. So, first of all, runes come from the Norse tradition and the very ancient spirituality of Scandinavia, which was known as Asatru. And this is where they used the energies of certain natural spiritual forces, such as Odin and Thor and Freya, which is, of course, related to the planets and planetary energies as well. Of course, Freya is related to Venus, and that's why the word Friday, which is often related to Venus, because the 7 days can be related to the 7 planets as well. And that's why Friday comes from the word Freya Day. Freya Day, Venus Day, Friday. In French, it's Vendredi, which is Von, V-E-N, Venus. So just like that, every day is related to a planet as well. So in the Norse tradition, all of these particular deities were related to the planets as well, just like Odin was associated with Mercury. And Thor was related to Jupiter, god of thunder, which is the equivalent of Zeus in the Greek tradition, in ancient Greek. So these runes are essentially an ancient magical alphabet that was used in the Scandinavian tradition. And the archaeologists and those who studied ancient scriptures in an ancient script, an ancient language, discovered and say that runes were probably the first type of written language, because they are mainly composed of horizontal, diagonal, or vertical lines in that way. And it was often seen in ancient caves, just drawn on walls, and was likely the earliest form of writing as well. So the runes that I am particularly talking about are the runes of the elder Futhark of the ancient Norse tradition. And there are 26 runes in that particular tradition. And each rune has incredible power and governs a natural force in all of existence, a natural energy. So how, first of all, it's important to understand the myth of the runes. So there are many different myths, but the idea is that Odin, one of the famous deities in the Norse tradition, who had a thirst for knowledge and wisdom. He yearned for it so much that he even sacrificed one of his eyes to gain this knowledge. And he realized that all of the knowledge of the universe was contained in these 26 runes. And he wanted to gain this knowledge by studying and understanding the runes. However, the runes were guarded and used by these particular beings known as the Norns, Norns, who used to carve the runes at the bottom of the sacred tree known as the tree of Yggdrasil. And right at the top was Asgard, at the top of the tree was Asgard, which is the holy land where all the deities resided, and that's where Odin was. And Odin wanted to peer at the bottom of the tree to take a look at these particular runes. The Norns were the weavers of fate. They were able to weave the destiny of the universe by using the power of the runes. So what Odin did was he hung himself upside down from Asgard to look and peer down at the bottom of the tree to take a look and study the runes. And from there he gained the knowledge of the universe, of the secrets of the universe that were contained in all of the runes. Right? So these particular runes are magical symbols that have immense power in them, and each rune has first of all, a certain shape, and that is the glyph of the actual rune, and then each rune has a certain chant associated with it. In the Norse tradition, it's called a Galdr, Galdr. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but if there's anyone from Norway um, or Iceland or another Scandinavian country, you can let me know how it's actually pronounced by. And so that is the actual chant, the sound associated with the rune, and that sound has just like a yogic mantra. It is the Scandinavian version and has power to influence reality, just like the rune itself. But also the rune has a certain posture in which you can hold your body in a particular shape that embodies that particular rune. For example, I'm not going to talk about all the runes here, but just as an example, later on I'll maybe create videos on each runes, just giving an introduction to them. But for example, one rune is called Algiz, Algiz, or Algiz, however it's pronounced. And of course, the chant for Algiz would be Algiz, pronounced in that way, chanting it out, vibrating it from the throat. And the posture, because the Algiz rune essentially looks like the English letter Y with another straight line in between. So it's like a letter Y, but with a line going through it, like that. So if you're holding the posture of Algiz, you're bringing your arms outwards and holding it outwards like that, and therefore your whole body, when you're standing, is now creating that particular symbol. So you are embodying that particular rune with your body, and then you're chanting that symbol and even visualizing it or even staring at that particular rune, bringing its power into you, and then you can harness it and use it for whatever work that you're trying to do. If you're trying to manifest something, if you're trying to develop yourself in a certain way, if you're trying to heal somebody, depending on what that rune is. So Algiz specifically is a protection rune. It's used to protect. So if you wanted to protect a room from negative influences, you can draw the Algiz rune in the four corners of the room to protect it, or the four walls of the room to protect it from negative influences or psychic attack, for example. So that's an example of the Algiz rune. It's interesting because I actually live in London, for those of you who don't know. And a while back I was walking down in South Bank, for those of you who know London, and there's a bridge just under, that cross, that's the bridge over the river Thames. And I was in near Blackfriars, and if you go by the bridge and walk down, there's a staircase that leads under the bridge, and there's a little platform of sandy land on the ground, and under the bridge there's a little corner where you can go in when the tide is low, actually under the bridge, under the land um, where the buildings and the shops are. And you can go under the bridge, and inside is a little corner, a little space with Algiz runes drawn in each corner. It's quite crazy. So immediately when I stepped in there, I could feel that there was a certain reverberation here. So it's almost like some kind of group either met up there or still do, and practice, Norse type workings, which is very interesting. um, I guess you really can find anything in London. So so this is an example of how you would bring in the energy of a rune and harness it and use it in some way. And essentially, it's a magical alphabet. It's an ancient and powerful alphabet that has have been used over and over and over again, and has become talismanic in nature. Just like Sanskrit, it's very similar. Sanskrit too is an ancient language, and the Sanskrit language has power. Hence, why the mantras have a certain power to them. Same as ancient Greek. Same as Hebrew. And now English is becoming more and more that, purely because it is now the language of Earth, and is becoming more like that, and more people are using it in that way. So the characters are becoming more and more talismanic in nature. And I think over the next 50, 60 years, it will grow in power as well, just like those ancient languages. So, just like that, there are runes for absolutely anything, whether that's love, whether that's wealth, whether that's health and healing, whether that's spiritual development, whether that's lucid dreaming, whether that's freeing yourself from anxieties. There are runes for absolutely anything. And there are ways in which runes can be put together to create a completely different energy. We call that a rune binding. And it's an entirely complex system. And those of you who've maybe watched Vikings, you can see the the character Floki has the runes tattooed around his head in that way. So you see the runes in all sorts of TV shows, and even video games. Of those of you who either play or have played Rune Escape are familiar with the runes. So that the runes are a real thing, and they have power, and you can use them, and it can benefit your life. Alright, so I'll talk about these runes more on my channel, so please subscribe to this channel if you like this sort of stuff. Please give this video a like, and I will see you soon. Take care.